Welcome to Just to Know You, the podcast that interviews regular people at SAES and finds out they are far from regular.
That's right. I'm your host, Darian Batten.
And I'm Angela Kerskaden.
Let's get started.
Thank you for joining us here on the Just to Know You podcast. We have with us some special guests, and we are interviewing in a special way. We have two, not one, but two to welcome today. They have been overseas since 2011 from Orangeville and Scarborough, Canada. They've been to 4 different schools since they've been here in Saudi Arabia. We have with us the Rawns, Mike and Nicki Rawn. Now, is it Mike or Michael?
Yeah, my grandma called me Michael. Everyone else calls me Mike. So, yeah, go with Mike.
We have Mike and Nicki Rawn.
Thanks for having
the
us.
Crowd goes, oh, no.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you for that plug. We appreciate that. Yeah, thank you so much. I had the pleasure of hearing about you here in Udaliyah camp as you came. I think you came for 1 year and just made such a difference in the lives of people. Could you tell me a little bit about your journey, not just in Saudi Aramco, but your journey from Scarborough and Orangeville? And am I saying that right? Scarborough?
Scarborough, yeah.
Scarborough, the birthplace of Drake, and Orangeville. And how did you get here to Saudi Arabia?
You want to take it, Mike, or me?
Yeah, let's. Well, it was a long and winding road, of course. Teaching is a second career for me. So I probably started at that point. Nikki and I met in university, Brock University. Go Badgers! We met and we started dating sort of at the end of my senior year. And Nick was halfway through. Nikki always knew she wanted to be a teacher, but for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was just figuring stuff out and did some landscaping and did some sitting in my dad's basement after graduation. But I finally made my way to journalism school, and I worked in newspaper for a decade before I decided it was time for a change. And then I went to teachers college and graduated. There was just no jobs in Southern Ontario at that point. And so Nikki had a colleague that had spent 6 or 8 years in China and Abu Dhabi, and sort of suggested that this overseas teaching could be an option for us. I really didn't know anything about it at that point.
Yes, she suggested going to a job fair. So in my mind, we were going to Europe. It was going to be a beautiful thing. We had just our 3rd baby. Macy was not quite 1 when we went to the job fair. And we went to the Europe jobs. You go upstairs. And so we went upstairs with our folder. So proud. We had a beautiful picture of our family. And we go upstairs.
I had no teaching experience at this point.
Yeah. We go upstairs and they look at our family and they say, nope, go back downstairs. So we were told, when you go through this job fair, don't take the first job, hold out. So we did. We were offered a job. Kazakhstan right away. Do you want the job? We were like, what? Don't even know where Kazakhstan is.
And then Egypt, we got offered a job in Cairo. That was during the Arab Spring, right around just after that, probably.
Yeah. And then we got a job in Abu Dhabi, which we were interested in, but the housing fell through. How job fairs go, they're interviewing at the different locations. And so the house for a family of 5 got taken. So we got jobs in Saudi Arabia at IPS school and Kazakhstan. That was the 2 that we had to decide on. And we thought about it, talked to some people, and decided Saudi. But then I started doing some research. So we went home, told our family we're going overseas. No one was thrilled. Grandparents were horrified. What do you mean you're going overseas? Maybe Mike can just do something else. He doesn't need to be a teacher. It was all blamed on Mike. So then it was at the time, what did I research? In 2004,
yeah,
there was that mass killing here.
Right.
And so I called up the school while Mike was working still in journalism. And I said, we're not coming. Sorry, we're not coming. And
Right.
then Mike came home from work and I just said, I just called them and quit. He said, what do you mean you quit? And I was like, well, I'm not taking my babies there. It's not safe. And after a couple of discussions, they might have been heated. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you go till Christmas? If you hate it, just don't go back.
Right.
So we did. And honestly, it was the best decision of our lives. Best decisions. It was the best time.
Really?
Yeah. We got paid very little. Very, very little.
Yeah. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said moving your whole family halfway across the world. You stated that it seems like it was the best time. What made it the best time?
I think the chance to travel was really important for us. It was pretty cool coming from small town. We were living small town Ontario at the time, and just the diversity of the people that you work with, students, and just being in. I was 39 when we came over here. I'd had my whole life in Canada, in Ontario, and it was just really cool to just experience a new culture, to be in a new different country. And we thought it would be 2 years probably, and then we would probably go back to Canada. And we did go back for a year after our contract had finished at our first school, and we weren't back very long before we decided, no, we got to go to another job fair and try to get back overseas. And it was at that point that we ended up at International Schools Group, ISG, at DEMS, at the American school there, and which is now ASD. And we spent 5 years there. And from at that point, that's when our Aramco journey started after that.
It's interesting because it sounded like you dreaded leaving to a certain extent, but then you go home to what you believe is your home, and you struggle, maybe not struggle to adjust, but it's just not the same.
A friend of ours that we worked with at IPS said, be careful when you go home, you're going to have culture shock. And I was like, culture shock? Like, what are you talking about? I'm Canadian, born and raised. I've only spent 2 years overseas. Like, culture shock? What are you talking? Like, I was horrified that he even suggested it. Oh, it hit us hard. Like
Really?
A month in, we were like, oh, Canada, it's so expensive. We forgot about, like, you had to pay for everything. I don't know. It's just like the family feeling here. Like, they love kids in Saudi, and our kids were little, and it was a great place for them to grow up. And so, yeah, we had culture shock going back home, which was,
Really?
Still no job for me at that point in Canada. So, it's like family of 5, one income. That's not fun.
Yeah.
So we went to a job fair again in Cambridge, outside Boston, or next to Boston. And that's when we didn't think we'd be coming back to Saudi Arabia, but that's just how it ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Really? And so you went to, you said DEMS?
Yes.
DEMS, which is now ASG. And then after DEMS, you went and joined the Aramco family.
Yes.
Oh, also your process to get to Aramco was quite intricate.
We actually went up, when we were at IPS, our first school, we were in the same house that the Courtsmans were in at IPS.
Oh.
And so we met them through a group of friends, and Courtsman said, let me show you where we're living now. And like, he was, how he's so beautiful. So he picked us up, didn't really know us, picked us up.
Very handsome man.
Very, very handsome man. So he picked us up and drove us to Udalia and showed us around and introduced us. Josh was the AP at the time. And who was the principal? Ian Russell.
Yep.
And so, we kind of interviewed then, not really informally. They just said Mike didn't have enough teaching experience, but they could tell like we would fit in well with the Udalia family. And then we'd actually been introduced to Udalia back year one in our Saudi adventure. So
such a small world.
Yeah.
Such a small world. Now you say you have you started a family before you came. You have 3 children?
Yes.
3 children. Are they with you now, or have you sent them?
Yeah, Katie is just finishing up her first year of university at University of Western Ontario. I think it's just called Western University now. And Harrison is in grade 11 at ASD. Mason's in grade 7 at the middle school here.
How has it been to have children in three different? I'm asking this personally, as I as I have children that are 9, 7, and 5, and I'm trying to add to my scheme of what it's going to be like. How has it been to have children across? It seems like three different schools, maybe a couple of different areas at the same time.
It's definitely been an adjustment not having Katie around. I mean, what was so cool about the beginning of being overseas was, at IPS, just walking to the school together, and then, at ISG, just, driving to school together and leaving together, and just seemed to have lots and lots of family time. And so it was hard when she left for university, and as far as, but it's also her time. She was ready to go, and she more or less enjoyed her time in Saudi Arabia. I think when she looks back, when she's a little bit older, she'll appreciate it, hopefully a little bit more than she does now. But it's definitely tough not having her, seeing her day to day. I mean, Nikki's great with phone calls and Zooms and all that stuff. But and then with the boys, I mean, they kind of catch the bus around the same time and are back about the same time. So they're at different schools, but their schedule is pretty similar to ours. So yeah, that's not such a big adjustment.
Okay, it sounds like it's still, even though it can be looked at as a place that's great for small kids, it sounds like your children have adjusted well as they've grown up in the various stages of their life. That it's still been a place that can accommodate them. You found that to be true?
I have. It's I think it can, especially if my boys have been involved in a lot of different sports. The Darian hockey league, the Sad Falcons, they were involved in that for 6 years until that stopped around COVID time. And now it's basketball, volleyball, and just keeping busy with that sort of thing. My daughter Katie was always a drama girl, so she was always doing school plays and different things. So yeah, I mean, I think probably like any place, like the more involved you are, the better experience it's going to be, the more people you're going to meet, the better time you have. You can sit on your couch and watch Netflix all day, but it's not going to be a great experience, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of that, how do you all find yourselves involved across the camp? What do you do to keep your juices flowing outside of school?
Actually, in Udalia, as you know, it's a small community. Everybody kind of comes together. There's always stuff going on. And when at our other schools, we were on a small compound as well. So it was easy, to be involved. There was always something happening and everybody knew about it and everybody was included. So when we came here, it was a different ballgame. I struggled a bit at the beginning just to find my place. I need to be involved. And we came here during COVID. And so everybody seemed to kind of be in their own place. And it was hard at first. And then Beth, an SST teacher here who's now in Bangkok, she kept on talking about this soccer league for women. And they have great happy hours. So I've never played soccer before. But I told her I wanted to join. And she was like, yeah, just come on out. We'll see, we'll see. And they made me kind of, it's not the way now. You want to join, you're on the team now. But for me, it was 6 months. I was on this wait list that they would call me if they needed me. And I would just show up. And I didn't even really know how to kick a ball. I played hockey and I played field hockey. So I knew the positioning, but I had never kicked a ball before. Never. Yeah. Honestly, it was so good to join the Desert Roses are awesome. Everybody join the Roses. It's honestly, it saved me. It's such a welcoming group. It's so fun, and we're good now. We're good. Yeah.
And does we include you?
Where I lack in footwork, I make up for in aggression. I'm a defensive player.
All right.
And I'm a little bit of the goon.
Okay.
But I'm proudly, I'll wear that. we play people half my age, and I take them out, and that's okay.
Nicki Rawn leaves you crying on the lawn.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, tagline. All
But I've
right.
improved. I have
That's
improved.
awesome.
I can kick the
Right.
ball now.
Right, yeah. And I think it's important for people to understand that it's all about the connection. So the reason why you're connecting matters less than the fact that you're actually out
Mhm.
there, kind of
Yeah.
putting yourself out there trying to make those connections. So
It made it so much easier. We just met, there's not only teachers that play on the team, but just moms in the community. And
Oh.
it's just, honestly, it feels good. It's fun. It's twice a week. It's exercise and a lot of laughs and great happy hours.
And so when do you all practice? When-
Mondays and Thursdays.
All right. So Mondays and Thursdays, Desert Roses. It'll be the happiest hour you spend.
Oh, we're legit now. We have coaches. I think we have a sponsor now, like
Really?
T uniform. Oh yeah, we've improved from what we were to what we are now. Like, we haven't lost in 2023 yet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And how many games do you all play a year or in the span of time?
Yeah, we played already 5 or 6 games this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's in Kingdom?
Always in Kingdom. Yeah. Oh, sometimes we go to Bahrain
Oh,
and we play
man. So-
against each other.
and you get the you get to travel. That sounds awesome. Desert Roses International Soccer Club. That's awesome. What about you, Mike? How do you adjust, and how have you connected outside of work?
Okay, so I've been a distance runner for a long time. I ran my first marathon in 1998, so that's 25 years ago. Had some injuries lately, but I had a short window where I was actually getting some really good results, but those days are far behind me now. But I still try to get out, but I don't run with a group. I do like to run alone. I'll go out with my boys sometimes. So I'm not connecting with anyone there, but it is something to that keeps me happy and keeps me somewhat fit, I guess. And I just find it's a relaxing. I like to start my day with a run. And as far as I do a podcast with another former Udalia teacher, John McGinnis. So we have the Mac and Mike Show podcast. We've had 26 episodes so far. We talk about music and shows we've been to, and yeah, just generally have a good time. And a friend of mine from ASD produces, and yeah, we just get together every couple weeks and have a fun time and do a podcast. And yeah, so check it out.
Awesome. Mac and Mike podcast. And where can it be found?
Spotify and Apple, and wherever you find your what do they always say? Wherever you find your podcast. I don't know. I have no idea. If my producer doesn't send me the link, I don't know how to get to it, honestly. So.
So wherever you find your podcast and listening delights, you can find Mac and Mike. All right, and they're discussing music and preferences and various groups and diversity amongst music. I remember having a conversation with you, and I mean, just in-depth discussions about genres and about ages. It was an awesome discussion for me. So, Mac and Mike, shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Yeah, probably sports and music are probably my two big passions. That I try to keep up with as much as I can. So, yeah.
And speaking of that, you were a sports writer, correct?
That's right. Yep.
And how was it being a sports writer in Canada before going to teaching? How was the sports writing life?
College basketball coaching legend Bobby Knight said most people learn to write in the second grade and then move on to bigger things. But I did have a really good time. I had a really good time doing it. I did it for 10 years. Like my friends would say, well, so you go to games and then like write about? Like what kind of, because it's not a job. This kind of easy life as this. And, you know, people hear the sports and they don't really think about the writing part. But yeah, I did, you know, really enjoy, I've always loved sports and the writing part, you know, as the more you do it, kind of the sports is just kind of the filler that you go and watch but then it's the writing part that really becomes the passion. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed really all of it for the 10 years. I was a movie critic as well for about 3 years at one of my newspapers. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, I still have a few friends that are still in the newspaper business, although it's certainly in Ontario, it's really slowing down. But yeah, no, it was good. I went to journalism school for a couple of years in the late 90s, and then yeah, I worked for pretty much 10 years straight, and kind of only when my daughter was born. And I remember like dropping her off her first day at junior kindergarten, and thinking, like, you know, because I cover sports, so I'm working evenings, I'm working weekends. I'm thinking, like, gosh, you know, it's just gonna, you know, I'm not gonna be able to see her, you know, and so that's when I switched over to I went to teachers college at that point. But yeah, no, I'm really glad I had that opportunity to do that. And journalism is really about the relationships that you make, that you can just call someone up and, you know, get some good information from them, get a good quote from them, build up the trust with them that they feel like they can tell you something and you're gonna do right by them. And it's also neat that your work's on display for anyone that wants to see it. You know, if we have a bad day teaching, well, who knows about it? You know, we know, probably the students, although, yeah, hopefully not. But yeah, you have a bad day in newspaper, like, yeah, everyone knows. I kind of miss that, and I miss the thrill of the tight deadline. Sometimes just in the newsroom when important things are going on. Yeah, it was just a fun environment.
Darian, Mike is being very modest. He
I
was
see.
not only was he a journalist, he was an award-winning journalist. And 2 Christmases ago, we always make our kids get a book for Christmas. Like, you get something you want, something you'll read, something, I can't even remember what we make them get, but books won. And so Chippy, our middle child, doesn't have the passion of reading like Mike and Katie do. He opened up this book, and we got him a Maple Leafs book, and we thought, oh, he's going to love it.
Toronto Maple Leafs
book. And he goes, well, I'm going to shelf that. And he shelved it. And then Mike picked it up, and he was reading it. And was he not quoted in it 3 times?
Really?
3 times. So award-winning, and in a Toronto Maple Leafs book. He is being a bit modest. He was really good at his job. But, I mean, family came first, and he was never going to see the kids.
Why are you being like that, Ron? Why can't you just be? Why can't you pat yourself on the back?
Well, it's not really a Canadian thing. We don't, you know, we're not very braggy. That's more of an American thing. Just alienated 3/4 of our listeners right now.
Yeah, but you went to an interview in Boston. Hey, once you got to Boston, Mike, it's time to gloat. Once you cross those borders.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's so funny, when at our first job interview, so I had taught at that point 14, 15 years. They didn't want to talk to me at all. He kept on turning to Mike and going, tell me about journalism. Tell me about writing. You know, like, tell me about this. And I was like, oh, look at me. And they did not care. He only cared about Mike's journalism when we first went overseas. But
yeah, I think it is rare that you meet someone that has a realistic end to writing. Because when you think about it, you know, unless you meet, I think the end result we think about is just author. And we don't necessarily think about the many venues, the individuals who have the ability to capture images with words. We don't think about how many different careers and paths they could have. I was reading Straight Shooter. It's a book by Stephen A. Smith. He's an on-air sports personality. And it seems like that's like the new path, is that you become a journalist, and now you can go and you have your podcast, and then
Yeah.
you have your, you may get a look on TV, and it seems like the sports journalist continues to have pathways and ways, because people want to hear about individuals in sports. People want to hear about these celebrities and how they're performing and the in-depth analysis of what they're doing. I think it's, man, you're the first sports writer I've ever met. Is there any way that you will return?
Well, I've thought about it. I have thought about it, but yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think with the with the internet and with blogging and just really anyone can do it now. I mean, that's sort of good and bad with that, right? And
Right.
I mean, for someone like Stephen A. Not a fan of his, by the way. He's an acquired taste.
Yeah. He's a showman now.
He's a
sure.
showman. He's a
yeah.
celebrity in his own right, as are, Mike Lupica or Dan Shaughnessy or Wilbon and Kornheiser from Pardon the Interruption. And they're celebrities in their own right. And I think sometimes that can get in the way of then they become the story. They have to do something controversial to get their 15 seconds on ESPN.com. But I really liked what I really liked about journalism, and when you're doing column writing, it's maybe a little bit more about you, and you got your picture in the on the paper. But when it's just a byline, and you can just tell a story, and it's not about you at all. It's about the event, it's about the people, it's about the profile of the people that you're wanting to share with the audience. So I did enjoy that part of it. Never say never, but I would think at this point, probably not. Would it be maybe something post-teaching that I would dabble in? Maybe. I have to sort of see what the landscape is at that point, and with where I could fit into it. If it would be just something that I would do for my own personal enjoyment. I'm not sure. It could end up being a paying gig for me at this point, but you never know.
It sounds like you're a writing purist. Like you like it for what it was designed to be, and to just capture the moments, and for individuals to enjoy the words on the page rather than those theatrics. Because there were some underlying feelings when you started to mention Stephen A. Smith. And,
yeah. Oh, he's annoying, isn't he? Skip Bayless is worse, but yeah, they're a pair.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's what's lost when you do become an on-air personality. They tend to skew much less towards actual journalism and more towards just whatever the hot story is.
Yeah.
We'll continue to talk about whatever the listeners want, not necessarily what I feel people should hear. So it's really, really neat, man. I think I don't know, if I had that possibility, I don't know, my family might have just had to suffer. So I just so that's awesome of you, man, just to make that
Thank you.
sacrifice. All right.
Another selfless act.
Oh my goodness.
In a lifetime of them.
One. Darian, let's count. One.
See, what you got to do is you got to write them down, Ron.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
He did. One.
and you got to frame them so that
It is.
so that everyone who enters understands why everything can be like it is. So, also, it seems like you all have had a great time, and that you are adjusting well. What has been one of the most difficult? You talked about a slight struggle of trying to adjust once you got to Dahran. What has been a difficult part of adjusting to Saudi Arabia in general?
I think it was all I'm really bad at thinking the worst. So it was before everything happened before. I had all the scenarios working out that, what life was going to look like here. And it's so different. It's very Western here. It's very easy to live here. It's great for kids. The teaching's great. I don't know. There hasn't really been, would you say, Mike? The travel?
Well, I think anyone that lives in Saudi Arabia there's a frustration sometimes with trying to get things done. You know, if,
Inshallah.
yeah,
Inshallah.
maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. So there's definitely some frustrations there, but of course there's frustrations in Canada as well, and it's not it's not that one's so much better than the other. I just think, for me personally, I just think I've made some great friends overseas, colleagues that I've worked with, and even a couple people that I've met that aren't teachers. And it's just the way of the international community that often those people move on, and it is sort of hard to say goodbye. And I'm not great at keeping in touch with people when they're not in my day-to-day life. So I think that's been hard. I think at times, especially with my daughter when she was, grade 11, grade 12, there was some, I don't want to be here. This is boring here. So there's a little bit of that, and always thinking, gosh, are we doing right by our kids? Is this the best upbringing that they could have? There's pros and cons with all of it. Or
Missing out on family.
Yeah. as we are. That's, a sacrifice that we all make to be here. And, I'll just be interested to see as they get old, just become adults and they have jobs of their own. Will they hunker down in one spot and because they were so far away from family through their childhood, or will they have that urge to continue to travel and explore new places? They've had their childhood compared to mine couldn't be more different. And, but I guess there's good and bad with both of it. So I'm curious to see as adults what sort of decisions they'll make.
How do you ensure that your family remains connected and intact with traditions and values and morals and scruples while you're overseas? What do you implement in maybe your normal everyday gatherings or in your holiday gatherings to ensure that your family stays connected and that the ties that bind us stay true?
Mike has a lot of characteristics that people describe him as. But I think one that's shocking is that he loves his traditions. He is a big tradition guy. Christmas, we have many, many traditions that, the reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Like the kids are now, what are they, 18, 16, 13. They had to sit on the couch and listen to Mike read it. Like just if you don't believe Santa doesn't come, the kids are still saying that. We do light walk. We go look at lights. Christmas Eve, and there's very few lights here, but we still go out. Still go out and go look at the lights. What other ones do we have? Thanksgiving, the full meal.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different, but I think because the extended family is not part of this. I mean, I guess we've been home for 11 years overseas. We've been home for 3 Christmases, so usually we're sort of on our own. So I think, yeah, it's sort of there's no, I don't know. I don't say extended family is a distraction, but it's just us. It's just us for birthdays, for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, for all these holidays. And yeah, I mean, I think I like to think that we're a lot closer because of it. And then when we do get home in the summer, definitely try to make as much time for cousins and grandma and grandpa and all that. So it's not the same. It's not the same as being there for all those big events, but just try to keep that connection going. We've always had a home. So we've been overseas. We've always had a home base. We have a condo in Collingwood, a little ski town, a couple hours north of Toronto. So I think they do, I don't know, third culture kids, but I think they do have a sense of that, there is a place for us, in Canada. This is home. Saudi Arabia is home, but we also have a home in Canada. But I mean, I feel like my daughter's had a fairly seamless transition to living full time in Canada, except she hates the Canadian winters. So, so yeah, I think part of that is just maintaining these traditions, and the kids they'll roll their eyes at some of these things. Nikki likes to have her traditional Saturday evening dinner, and kids roll their eyes, but I think maybe deep down they like it. Well,
when we first came to Aramco, I came here later. So we had it took us a little bit longer to adjust. And I came in November. And it was the very first time our family had been separated. Katie was in Bahrain at the boarding school. I was with the boys in Canada. Mike was here. And so it was hard. That was the hardest part of being overseas, was being apart. And so at Christmas, we weren't all together. Like, we were together, but we just hadn't had our finances all together, and we had to make some changes. So I said to the kids, okay, Christmas is going to look a little different this year. And I saw online where there was like the snowman, right? And you have they get 3 gifts. They get like a want, a need, and like something small on top. And oh my goodness, it was like I was asking the kids they were not happy with the snowman. Like, they were not happy with the snowman idea. We even got them a dog that year, and Mike didn't want a dog. We got them a dog. But they were just changing that tradition and changing it up. Like, every year I've said, we should do the
less
snowman.
Gifts, they weren't happy.
Yeah, less gifts. They were just not happy. They didn't want any part of it. If you mentioned the snowman, it's like PTSD for our kids. Like, not the snowman. No snowman gifts.
What did you learn out of that tight Christmas? What do you still carry from it, if anything?
I learned, but we don't continue doing it.
Gosh, did we learn anything? Oh my gosh. Yeah, you still make a list where you have, the kids have to fill out, okay, the 3 sort of main categories of something you want, something you need, something to wear, sort of thing. And then, of course, so they do that, and then Nikki buys, but 20 gifts each on top of that. So
we started off early, making the mistake with Christmas, buying them too much, and then it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And then when you try to, I don't know.
It's fun. I don't know. My mom told me when I was an adult, she said, like we would have got you more if we could have afforded it and whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're also compensating for the love that they would have received at home.
Yeah.
Like, when you are overseas, it's almost like you have to invest in your traditions, so that everyone is vested, so that they continue to remain. It has to be an awesome time. It has to be a great experience, so that, because everything here is not going to necessarily support it. You don't have, the lights are not as big as they would be at home.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
The dinners, they may be a little skewed because your ingredients are a little slightly off.
Yeah.
So it's your yams are different if you're using an Egyptian sweet potato rather than an American sweet potato or an Australian sweet potato, or what I mean. Like, your dishes and everything are slightly off. So you definitely want to make it an experience. And what better way to make an experience than more gifts? I've never heard someone say.
Not enough gifts.
Yeah.
You should try the snowman next year.
Hey, don't tempt me, because I am the frugal one. My wife and I, we had to agree. I don't believe in celebrating anything, really. I believe it's not that. I'm frugal. So I believe, I don't know, like you, I don't know. I just don't want to spend money. But I think
the word's cheap, Darian.
Yeah. You're not gonna let me dress it up. See, that's what that vocabulary. That's that sports writing vocabulary.
It's a good word. It's a good word.
Yeah, frugal. I'm preparing for the future. No, I'm cheap. But I'm thankful for Alicia, who spends a lot of time making sure our traditions are stable and respected and continue on. So
yeah, that's important.
What would you want your children, if they could only take one thing? They have to forsake everything else. They can only take one thing from their entire experience of you taking them and moving them overseas. What would that one moral value, scruple, understanding, what would it be that you would want them to have for the rest of their lives?
I think keep that sense of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Always keep that sense of wonder and excitement. And, when we would, they've been to close to 30 countries or right around there. And I mean, yeah, to always have that thirst to see what else is out there, and to always be excited to try new things.
What about you, Nikki?
I think it's family. I think we're closer because we're here. I think if we were at home, they'd be out with, out with their different groups of friends, and they are here too, but it's still, we have a lot of family time here, way more than we would at home. And I just think that closeness, and I love their relationships. They're very close, the three of them.
Really?
Yeah, really, really close. And
How did you develop that?
well, I don't know if we did. I think Katie and Chippy's right now is like them against us. They have a lot of laughs against me. They text each other, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what Mom did now," or "Dad did." And then the boys, I think it's just the sports and
sports, video games, just picking on one another. But they're
close.
3.5 year age gap, but they're very close. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
I think it's so neat. It says, you said keep your sense of adventure, and we're closer because we're here.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us on the Just to Know You podcast, where hopefully we led you on an adventure, but yet and still you feel closer because you were listening here with Ms. Nikki and Mr. Michael Rawn. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us on, Darian. Keep up the great work with this podcast.
Yeah, great laugh, Darian. Great podcast laugh.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Just to Know You.
We would like to thank our amazing tech man, Mr. Kent Arimura, Sterling McDonald for the podcast music, and the SAES community. See you next time.
If you know anyone who you think has a great story to tell, we would love to hear about it. Please send an email to either Angela, Darian, or Kent.